So essentially, I want to make an announcement which will anger many individuals who are possibly long-term followers of this channel. But honesty and integrity were always fundamental aspects of me as a practitioner, and therefore it is important to discuss one really prevalent phenomena in the modern occult community, especially among modern writers of what can be described as left-hand path demonolatry. In the modern Western magic style, I need to say that I no longer, for a really long period of time, describe myself as a Satanist demonolator, Western left-hand pather, and I shifted much more towards left-hand path Hinduism and traditional Slavic magic. Out of all of the demonic entities I worked before, I work only partially with Lilith Nama and Belial. This channel owes a lot to Lilith, so the name will stay the same, and the Lilith herself will still be the dominant part of the channel, as well as King Paimon. But I need to express that I no longer support nor endorse modern left-hand path demonolatry movements. I consider studying them to be the waste of time, and I consider studying them to be extremely risky and dangerous endeavor, but for the wrong reasons. And here I will explain why. If you look at modern occult community, especially modern left-hand path occult community, 60% are clinically insane people. If you mathematically look at this community, 60%, almost 2/3, are clinically insane, and they constantly struggle with depression, schizophrenia, different forms of psychosis, panic attacks, and different mental deformities. I am not here to judge people who suffer from those mental difficulties. Quite to the contrary. I love and endorse those individuals. But there is a reason why 2/3 of the modern Western demonolatry left-hand path community are clinically insane. Significant percentage of those who became clinically insane and who are clinically insane within the community became clinically insane after they started practicing. Their practice caused them to become clinically insane. And there is a reason for it. And I think the reason for it is a flawed and fraudulent way of presenting information within the Western modern demonolatrous occult community. There is nothing resembling a working traditional system in this community. There is not a single author who I read in this community, outside of possibly S. Connolly, who presented a safe working system step by step for people who are willing to work with those spirits. Majority of introductory steps to work with demons are skipped over or completely glossed altogether. The only thing we hear are unfulfilled promises of wealth, fame, and riches, which never come about. For that reason, I decided to distance myself from now on from the modern demonologous occult community of so-called Lifecamp Path, because I consider that community to be representing something which doesn't exist. There is no evidence for what people call traditional Western demonolatry. There is something called grimoire tradition. That is a thing which exists. But grimoire tradition is a part of Christian Gnosticism and Christian esotericism, and has nothing to do with the modern demonolatry tradition, which is in its own nature a modern phenomena. All of the demonolatry books present on the market are younger than my dad, who is 50 years old. And almost none of those authors presents a working system of demonolatry, which is step by step oriented. I read many famous occult authors from the field of demonolatry. I tried their methods, and they all suffer more or less from the same illness, which is over reliance on personal gnosis, lack of structure, lack of understanding of historical contexts of the cultures from which those entities or mentions of those entities originate, and complete unwillingness to explain step by step magical process and what it consists of. Instead, what you get most of the time is reliance on mostly fraudulent sources nobody is able to check, and bad fantastical fiction which serves as means of trying to fill the hole which is clearly there due to lack of actual information. Out of modern demonolatry authors, the only author I consider to be more or less safe and more or less reasonable in promises and methods is S. Connolly, because she really, for all of the flaws in her work, presents work with demons in a realistic and understandable way. For majority of the others, famous occult authors of the left-hand path, majority of which I have read, I can only say that their work is pretty much extremely risky to try, devoid of structure, and in those circumstances, probability of you going insane from the working operations is extremely high. This is why we have 2/3 of clinically insane people within modern occult community. Because this community is centered around profit. This community is centered around personality cults. This community is centered around people trying to become new messiahs. And for that reason, I shifted in my practice from mostly modern demonolatry to more of a traditional Slavic magic mixed with Hindu left-hand path Tantra, according to the information shared by the Ion World Foundation. And here I will present a difference between a complete working system presented by the Ion World Foundation and the modern left-hand path demonolatry literature. You see, within left-hand path Hinduism presented by the Ion World Foundation, you have clear and defined steps of how to start practicing, which practices to perform, which spirits should be called first, which spirits should be called later, when to call the spirits, how to call the spirits, why to call the spirits, how to make spirits to reply to you, how to make spirits to do your bidding, how to make spirits to give you the most out of your ritual operations. All of those things are clearly defined, outlined, presented, explained, and investigated within the Ion World Foundation and as well as the people who run it. When I presented my material to the Ion World Foundation and when I presented my experiences, I wasn't scolded, blackmailed, or proclaimed a lunatic. Even when I discussed extremely controversial topics, such as mass curses, aspects of human sacrifice, eating human flesh, even those controversial topics were discussed rationally, without judgment, without empty moralism and pathological need for everyone in discussion to be right. At the other side, you have modern demonolatry, left-hand path, occult community, in which you have lot of self-proclaimed authors, ascended masters, living gods, living demons, embodiments of some black sun. By the way, I am not I am not trying to say that Black Sun doesn't exist. It does, even in Hinduism. But what I am trying to say is that claiming to be incarnation of the Black Sun in human form is simply ridiculous, and it is not logical nor reasonable. And all of those people with extraordinary claims fail to present organized, workable, magical system which can be verifiably applied to all kinds of people without creating mentally dysfunctional individuals. Majority of the modern Left-hand path works are devoid of structure, are devoid of organization, are devoid of attempt to, in an organized way, present instructions for the adept step by step. And that is the problem with the modern demonolatrous occult community. You see, I will give you one really profound example. I will not name the author nor the book, but there is a book out there which teaches you how to supposedly summon really dangerous jinns. But within that book and within that text, there is no working structure for how to prepare for summoning those entities. Through observing different people who worked with those spirits and having multiple, almost deadly experiences with spirits from those books myself, I concluded that 60% of people who used the book to summon the entities ended up insane as a result. So I needed to essentially take only names and the sigils from the book, scrap methodology entirely, and create new complete working system for working with those entities, which I only personally used, and I didn't share it with anybody else because I don't want to be responsible for people going insane. And this is the case with majority of occult material I read. I summon the entities according to methods given in the books. I try it out. I see a bunch of shit is missing. Then I add missing shit from my own toolbox, make rituals work, and then I have certain results with it. And I noticed that this is the case for majority of successful practitioners in this community. They are all aware that modern demonolatrous literature is mostly incomplete personal gnosis of the authors of those books. So when you ask authors of those books, what is the reason for the lack of complete working system in their material, they will tell you that it is because of the knowledge we lost in so-called burning times. The truth is that the Western esotericism outside of grimoire tradition, which is semi-alive, don't have working lineage of practitioners of the Western esotericist demonolatry or Lefkian path. For that matter, this channel will shift from presenting mostly demonolatry content to presenting essentially content mostly related to Lefkian path Hinduism and Lilith, Nama, Belial and Paimon, which are four entities I can offer full curriculums for. Thanks for watching.